and welcome to my channel. This has been a long-awaited video, well for me anyway. It is finally my next sketchbook tour. My first one is already up on my channel, and this one I did over the past year. So it took me from last March to yesterday. I finally finished the last one, so a little bit over a year. I'm going to share some old footage that I filmed at the beginning of this journey when I had planned to make it all about using my Sennelier palette, and I did for the first half, but then I branched out and tried some other things. This month, my goal for the month of March is to use my precious material. And I think that a lot of us have something sitting around that we have made precious to us. It can be the first real watercolor paper that we've purchased and we don't want to waste it. There is no wasting, and I need to follow my own motto, practice what I preach. So I'm going to be using my precious material, and I hope that you'll be using your special material this month too. Anyway, let's get to it. Sketchbook tour. My favorite kind of video. Here is my 140 pound cotton watercolor sketchbook, unfortunately discontinued. It's the 8x8 size, and on the first page I decided to swatch the palette that I wanted to use for the book. So it was my first professional watercolor palette that I'd ever purchased, the Sennelier 24 pan set, and here are all the colors in the set. I'm just going slowly. I won't read them all out, but you can pause the video in parts and take note if there's any colors that you especially enjoy. I started this sketchbook in March 2021, and it took me about a year to complete, just over a year for this one. Keep in mind, I do have more than one sketchbook. This is just my watercolor sketchbook. Okay, first page. In this one, I used lemon yellow, quinacridone red, phthalo blue, and phthalo green to paint this negative painting of Starfish. I had done a larger one just using greens before and wanted to see if I could challenge myself to use more colors and still get that depth of value. So I already listed the colors. You can tell it's a voiceover sometimes when I'm not completely matching. This one is definitely a more illustrative style. It has that flatter look with the layers because I don't have so many lost and found edges or ranges of value in each layer, but that's the effect I was going for, so I'm really happy with how it turned out, and I just love all the colors in it. A rainbow sea of starfish. In this one, the colors that I used are dioxazine purple, French vermilion, alizarin crimson, and yellow ochre. For this, I actually went to a dive forum on Facebook and I asked divers if they had any photos that I would be able to use for my art. And the name at the top that I just pointed to, Tony, he is a wonderful underwater photographer and generously let me use his photos for many of the artworks that you'll see. I'll let you know which ones I used his photos for and which ones I didn't, but I had full permission and I'm so grateful. This is a fish. I'm not sure the exact type of fish. I would have to look into that for more information, but I loved the different textures that he had, and I tried to paint with a looser style and use a different color scheme than the one in the photo. I was trying to get more creative with color and then have details, but still that looseness and that watercolor depth with the signature splashiness. This one is the same photographer. I'm not so happy with how it turned out. I used Indian yellow, ultramarine blue, burnt sienna, and Payne's gray, and I wanted it to really have that depth of the shark swimming out from the sea, the light from above, and then the layers of fish pooling around him. I'm not happy with how it turned out, and I think it's because the shark looks cut and paste on there. He's not blending into the background enough, and I have too many sharp edges instead of him blending in, so I think that's what I would change for the next time. And here, same photographer again. I love this reference photo. It's exactly what I was looking for and had in mind when I asked for reference photos. I used lemon yellow, Cenarius blue, cobalt violet, light hue. Actually, I lied. I didn't use that. I planned on it, but didn't end up needing it. And Payne's gray. And just with those three colors, actually, I managed to achieve these beautiful textures with salt and wet on wet layers, and then wet on dry for the divers. I'm extremely happy with how it turned out. It has the atmosphere that I was looking for and reminds me of diving so much, and it's almost like diving in a deep cave. This next picture is made with Naples yellow, Viridian green, Cinereus blue, sorry if I say it wrong, Venetian red, and it is a seahorse. I did have the Venetian red, but just a touch to warm up some of those green colors and mute them a bit. I also added some white gel pen for details at the end on this one. I'm happy with the lost and found edges. That's something that I'm working on as a recurring theme throughout this book, is not having everything harsh, but some soft, some hard edges, just to give it a different feel. Okay, this one is Naples yellow, carmine, burnt sienna, cobalt violet hue, phthalo blue, and ivory black. This was inspired by a video on TikTok where people were posing with Renaissance filter and saying that they felt like they were in a painting, but this woman posed and said that she didn't feel represented by paintings in the Renaissance. And I was inspired to paint her because she was gorgeous and she should feel represented in paintings. So it was just one of those fleeting inspirations, and I loved painting her. I love how the hair implies detail without having every detail, and I always enjoy portraits, and this one was no exception to that. Again, I used the white gel pen for the finishing touches, and I really liked the muted palette of this one, those soft, warm colors. And a complete opposite for the next one. This is an eel, and I used forest green, opera rose, lemon yellow, cinereous blue, and warm sepia. And for this one, I just wanted to have something more illustrative, something you'd kind of see on a sticker. I wanted to see how bold I could go with colors and just play. So it is a looser, splashier one with trying to draw details to the face. I like it. I'm not sure if it was entirely what I was going for, but it's cute. And it was fun to try something a bit different and even more colorful, like my starfish, but in a more confined space. And this is a pufferfish, again, a photo by Tony, and this, I just adore how it turned out. The wet onto wet, those dark splotches into the yellow. The yellow stayed clean and pure enough. It's lemon yellow, Venetian red, Payne's gray, and cerulean blue. And as I was saying, the yellow stayed pure enough, even though I had the wet onto wet blends. It controlled in a nice way where it didn't go crazy, but it looks softer on the edges. And then that salt on the background gave a perfect effect where it pulled some of the blue and some of the yellow green away from each other. Yeah, so happy with this one. It's okay to be happy with your art. It's actually the best feeling ever when you do something and are happy with it. So I'll show this one a little bit longer than the others. Sorry. You might not like pufferfish, or it's not a pufferfish, it's a boxfish. Anyway, cute. And more fish! I have lemon yellow mixed with cinereous blue, which is also known as cerulean, so you'll see me writing that name down sometimes. Phthalo blue and spring green, making that brighter one, and Payne's gray. So my swatches on the side are mixtures of those colors. This one, I was going for a really soft, gradated transition in the background from light to dark, and then keeping the white of the fish. So I did some of that lifting technique to get the lightness back on the fish before I applied the dark colors to make them stand out and contrast. I am happy with this one too. A lot of times when I'm making sketchbook drawings, and with this one particularly and the early themes of Submerged, I'm doing small versions, thumbnails of things that I would like to make into larger paintings. This is an octopus. I used dioxazine purple, cobalt violet light, phthalo blue, lemon yellow, and phthalo green light. The reason I'm laughing is because with this one, I did a wet into wet background, going crazy with colors, and I didn't have in mind what I would make on top. And I think that really does affect the quality of my paintings, because when I have a plan, I know where to leave light, I know where I want the dark, I know what the composition will be. And when I don't have a plan, I'm not usually as happy with it. So that's what happened there. Okay, this next page I have bright red, warm sepia, forest green, French vermilion, and ivory black. And for this one, I wanted to try some different texture of it. I can't speak. Different texture effects in the background. So I did a layer with salt, and then I also did some sponging on top. to get more variety and see what would happen. It's all about experimenting in my sketchbook. And of course, every sketchbook of mine must have a sea turtle, at least one sea turtle in it. So there's the obligatory sea turtle. This one I was going for more abstract. I wanted to see how far I can push shapes and then using cool tones for shadow and trying to brighten up by lifting or dropping in extra color to really use cauliflowering to my advantage. So this one was about play and experimentation, and it's just fun. It's more abstract and illustrative, and I am happy with it. Look at those colors. They're just gorgeous together. I forgot to say the colors. Payne's Gray, Ultramarine, and Opera Rose, yes. And sand dollars. I used Indian Yellow, Cobalt Violet Light, Ultramarine Blue, and Warm Sepia. And for the background, what I did is I applied a wet wash of water and then did wet into wet with the colors, just the rainbow ones, not the sepia yet. And then I applied saran wrap, and what that does is leaves a really cool texture. And you can kind of see how it originally looked on the sand dollars. It's more grainy and light, not as much contrast as in the end. And then in the background, I deepened the texture. So I used that pattern that was already there and then filled it in with negative painting. And that's what made that cobweb kind of background effect and makes the starfish sand dollars really stand out against it. I was playing with lost and found edges with that fourth sand dollar as well, just so that they didn't all look copy pasted into the book, and I am really happy with this one too. Negative painting is a technique that I absolutely love to do. In this one, I think it's a bit too cluttered. In the end, the background is very busy, and then the turtle's busy too, so everything is textured. I used forest green, viridian green, lemon yellow, and yellow ochre, and my swatches have salt. I don't remember why I did that or if I did that on purpose, because the painting itself doesn't actually have any salt effect in it, just splashes. And then in the splashes, what I did was doll up multiple colors in just to see how they played together and what kind of different blending I could get in the background. But again, I think it's a little bit too busy. I'm still happy with it. It is kind of a camouflage effect being so busy everywhere. But yeah. That is that one. Next page is Warm Sepia, Payne's Gray, Ultramarine Blue, Phthalo Blue, and Cineris Blue, and it was an Emily Curtis Skillshare workshop. I will link, if I mention any tutorials, I'll put them in my description below. I don't get any type of kickback or benefits from linking them, but I just want to give credit to where credit is due. Okay, Opera Rose, Payne's Gray, Cineris Blue, Lemon Yellow, and Warm Sepia. I didn't use the Warm Sepia. I lied again when I was doing my swatches. Sometimes my plans change. Okay, for this one, I did originally kind of similar to the sand dollars, but I didn't like it. It was not turning out how I wanted. It looked awful and I wasn't happy with it. So after I did a few sketches further in the book, I came back again and layered this marker on top. So with the Micron pen, I added the background texture, I outlined the stingrays, I just made all these illustrative effects and even added some depth with color. And I'm way more happy with it now than I originally was. So sometimes it's good to leave something and then come back to it later, and you might have a bout of inspiration. Okay, here's where I kind of strayed off from my original plan of using the Sennelier palette. At the top, those swatches are the Sennelier palette, but I didn't end up using any of them, so just ignore it. For this, what I was doing is a thumbnail of a concept that I want to do in an oil painting, so I used more opaque colors, so white in the watercolor to make that gouache look, and some handmade paints that I have that are really opaque. So the idea I have is turtles swimming around light bulbs in a dark scene, and I'm not sure how to create it yet, so I was just practicing and playing with how I can get that color. I'm not 100% there, and I'm not confident enough to paint it large yet, but it's great practice to try and get it on paper first before I go for that big canvas. All right, the next couple, I was in quarantine actually, in a hotel room, so I did a Skillshare. The Skillshare is by Irina. I'm not sure if I can say her name or do it justice. So I will link her name and her Skillshare below, but it was a magical landscapes one, and I did this painting with her Skillshare video and also the painting on the next page. This one was really fun. I like how she talks about adding some details at the end, and she made me consider background to foreground and different ways to add layers that I might not have considered in the past that just helped them look finished. Painted in quarantine, yep. Here's that second painting, and I like how she leaves them more abstracted, but still manages to use so much little detail and colors along the way. So it was enjoyable. I like that one. Another Skillshare class from quarantine, and this is Zaneena. I can't see. I need to zoom in the name. What's it say? Zaneena. Nabeel, her Skillshare class, I'll link it again, and this one was just simple. She does flat washes, graded washes, great class for beginners, and of course the silhouettes are great for beginners too. And then on the left I did some of my own, but this sketchbook does have a huge flaw. The other side of the page doesn't work as well, and colors lift, they don't blend as clean, and they're not as bright. So that's why the ones on the right look so vibrant, is just a sizing issue with the paper. Okay, next I'm out of quarantine, and I was doing this out and about. I would call it plein air, but obviously I wasn't staring at a whale in the water, staying still like that, so it was more from a combination of reference photos and my imagination that this one came about. But it was outside at a diner, so I like that I have memories of where I was when I painted this, because usually I'm painting at home. Okay, this one, I was trying to go back to my usual swatching and trying things on my own. This was with my new palette, that red one that I mentioned in the last videos. It's Plum Pastel, Dioxazine Violet, Anthracite Blue, Quin Rose, and New Gamboge. And actually I didn't use every color in this, again, and I messed up. I had a plan for this lizard. It's a reference photo I saved a long time ago, and I didn't like how it was going, so then I just tried layering and trying different colors of the backgrounds, and that's what I got. This is the fourth portrait I've done in this type of style. I've done one was just pure abstract, and it was called Demi Goddess, and then the next one was Among Starfish. The one after that was Ocean Theme, and this one I was going for more of an earthy look, and I decided my color palette beforehand, and I think that really helped to pull the piece together and unify it, even though it has some realistic aspects and some illustrative aspects. This one was also inspired by Beda, and her style is similar to mine in Portraiture. We have some overlapping qualities, and I absolutely love her work. It's kind of where I want to be when I grow up. So if you haven't checked her out, check her out. I'll link her below too. And this is another one inspired by that same style. I just love how she does those loose washes and doesn't worry about the details or those happy accidents until the end. It all comes together. So I'm trying to take that inspiration and make it my own as well, because that's what we all need to do. This one kind of has a weird shadow on the arm in the reference photo, and I'm not sure it translated fully in the end, but otherwise I am happy with the play, experimentation, and everything I learned from it. I used masking fluid and a ton of layers and colors that I wouldn't normally go for. Okay, these next few are from a Skillshare tutorial by Geethu Chandramohan, and I will link her Skillshare below. It is beautifully done. She has it broken into, I want to say 14 days of lessons, and they're all on painting water and different techniques. She applies tons of wet into wet layers and then does some dry on wet at the end, and they're just magical. And I think that a lot of the techniques I learned and the color mixtures and the way that she lifts and applies the paint, I'll be able to use those same techniques and the skills that I learned in her class to apply to future paintings. Of course, these ones are all from the tutorial, so I can't use them for anything besides my personal practice. And yeah, it's just, I would recommend this class 100%. Isn't that awesome? They turned out so wonderfully because her instruction is so wonderful. and another one from her, a paper boat in the water. I added instructions for myself in the corners so that if I'd like to recreate some of the techniques that I would remember how. So there you have it. This sketchbook has been a wonderful experience for using my precious materials, which was my Sennelier palette that I mentioned at the beginning, for trying and experimenting with new things, and for doing thumbnails of paintings that I'd like to do in a larger format in the future. I am so sad that this sketchbook is full. Well, it's bittersweet. I'm happy to have filled it, but I am sad that I only have one more. When I knew that they were being discontinued, I purchased 2 square ones and 1 large one, so I only have 1 more square one remaining, and that's the end of this beautiful paper. I'm going to do another video which is looking at the watercolor sketchbooks I've tried, what worked for me, which ones really didn't work for me, and why, and that will be probably the next video that I post will be on my sketchbook experiences and which ones I enjoy. If you made it this far, thank you for sticking it out for this long video, much longer than my usual videos. And if you enjoyed this sketchbook tour, please give it a like and subscribe for more future videos. And in the comments down below, you can let me know what you thought or ask any questions about materials or sketchbooks or make any comment you'd like. I love reading comments and seeing what you have to say and learning from others in this community. Thank you for watching and have a good day. Bye.